Hello, this is video 20 something. I still don't know what number we're at, but at any rate, this is going to be another demo. That's why you see the screen, and it's going to be a project with multiple files like the one with the TV class. Make a new project, and since I'm going to do all the stuff from scratch, I'm not even going to make a console application. I'm just going to make an empty project. Go. And it's so close to the TV class, I'm going to call it example 8A. It doesn't even get its own number. And I'm going to put it in my folder called Workshop, which is where I just kind of mess around with things and experiment. You might have your very own folder for projects you do for this class or examples you do for your class, whatever. But I do recommend that you put it in a special place so it's easy to find all the files. Now at the moment this doesn't have any files at all. It's just a project workspace. So I click on the blank sheet of paper up here and I'm going to make a new empty file. Do I want to put it in the project? Yes, that's why I'm making it. What do you think? And this is going to be example 08a.cpp, not CPB. And okay. Now I should have a source code file in there that doesn't have anything in it. I found out by messing around that if you hold down the control key and use the mouse to roll up and down, you can make the text bigger, which is really handy for me. I might have to shrink it down a little bit later. But at any rate, I'm just going to run on by here, and some stuff is standard here. # include IOStream. What else? Oh, using namespace std. I guess I could have done this in advance, huh? And it's always going to have int main void. It's always going to return 0. Yeah, I really could have done this in advance. Let me get going up here. And look what a good example I am. I'm going to put the file name, which is ex08a.cpp. And what else do I put? My name. Oops. And transcu. And CS2124. We are in May 2021. Now, while I'm up here, I might as well go ahead and think about where we're going with this. I have some idea in mind. What I've done is, you can't see because this is just a screen record, but off to the side I've printed out all the files for example 8, the main program, and then the 2 files we need for the TV class, which remember simulated the behavior of the TV with channels and volume and everything, the TV.h and TV.cpp. Except I'm going to make a new one, very similar, yet new. Try out a new, well of course it's new, I'm just not making it up, C++, and this one I'm going to call it RadioButtons, and that's a long name and I'm going to regret that, but I'm going to anyway. Try out a new C++ RadioButtons class. What's this going to do? Well, what this is going to do is simulate radio buttons that are in a car, where you push a button and it goes to that station. So for each button, however many buttons I have, I'm going to need to store a radio frequency. So the button number can be an integer. I'm thinking out loud here. The button number itself can be an integer over in the, and that will go over to the class and select the radio station that goes with that button, and that radio station frequency will need to be double. There. That was a lot of talking without much typing. This is just habit. Get in a good habit here. There. Now I've not only documented my whole program, it just doesn't do anything. You know what? Before I go one step further, I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save frequently so you don't lose your work. And compile and make a run. Even though it does absolutely nothing. Press any key to continue. So far it's not broken. That's good. Now, I don't have a RadioButtons class. Well, how can I test it? Well, I know what I'm going to do when I get there. Let me see. I'm going to ask the user for a button number. Cout, make it look pretty. I'll put an ENDL, ENDL, just goes to the next line. And prompt them for a button number, : space. No ENDL there because I want it to stay in the same line. Then I want to read it in. CN Yeah, that's going to be a lot of typing every time. Button number. I'm going to abbreviate. Button num. And then get the frequency that goes with it. And I'll just go to the next line, no endo here. And I guess you could just say what? Well, I'll say station frequency instead of just frequency. Make it look official. If I can spell frequency. And read that in. I will shorten this, FREQ. There. So now I've got a button number and a frequency, and I want to store that over in my button num class. So whatever number they typed in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, I want to store this frequency with that. So I need to have a button number thing. I don't have that yet. Actually, I don't have any variables. You know my typing style. You saw this in previous videos. I go ahead and use stuff as if it exists. I mean, I'm using a whole class here as if it exists. And we haven't even started it yet. But I am going to have one called Radio Buttons. I'd regret that already. Radio Buttons, and this will be for my Civic. There. And yes, I do have a Civic. And button number, that's got to be an integer, because that's a whole number. Only a whole numbers of buttons, please. B-U-T-T-O-N, num. Haste makes waste. And the frequency's got to be double. And I'll make it look a little nicer than that. Tab. Beauty is important. Tab, and my Civic is already way over there. So now that I have a button number, the frequency, I'm going to see if I can set it. And that'll be my CIVIC. And it already knows what the data type is, but I don't have any functions to call. I'm going to pretend, well, I'm not going to pretend, I better have a set button function. Oh no, what's the set button function need to know? It needs to know the button number. And it also needs to know the frequency. There. That's all there is to it. Set the button and run. Now then, after I've set the button, I might want to check on it. So let me document as I go, since I'm being such a wonderful example here. Set. I'm going to do several, so I'm going to go ahead and make the comment, talk as if I'm doing several. Set a few stations for buttons. Looking ahead to the future. And since I'm going to do that, what I have in mind that you can't see is over in Radio Buttons, I'm going to have an array. Of course I am. I'm going to have an array where the index number is the button number, and the value of the array element is going to be the frequency, 88.1 or whatever it may be. So after I've set a few, I want to see what buttons are set and their frequencies. I should have thought through the comments a little better up front, but it's too late now. See what buttons are set and their frequencies. FREQ's frequencies. And for that, I guess I will just set up a for loop and loop through all the buttons. For int I equals 0, I is less than how many buttons? I'm going to put 6. There might be more, there might be fewer, but I just want to see the first 6 buttons, plus I. Just so I can go ahead and call functions that don't exist yet. What am I going to do for each one of those? Well, I need to get the button, my Civic, dot get button. What could be simpler? And I got to provide it with a button number, but look at this. The button number is going to be the index number. So it looks like I'm going to be starting with button 0, doesn't it? Either that or 0 will never be set. So get button, and I'll get frequency. I'll reuse my variable. Now here's the deal. This is what we will soon know if we don't know already. This is an accessor. No, it's not. This is a mutator. I did that to see if you were paying attention. This is a mutator. This is going to change the state of our radio buttons object by actually changing an internal setting in the private variables. That's a bunch of big words. This is the accessor. This is going to get it without changing it. But if you look at this, what does it do with what it gets? It looks like it ignores it. What I'm going to do, again, thinking to the future, I'm going to make frequency a reference parameter. And you might well say, well, why don't you just go ahead and make that the return value? Then you could do something like this. Where's the cursor? Then you could do something like f equals and get the return value. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Not just with this class, but with all classes. If there's a possibility that your member function might fail, then the convention, a deeply held strong convention, is to return a Boolean value, says true or false whether or not that was successful. Watch this. If my frequency, if you were able to get a frequency, then the return value will be true. See what I did there? If my civic.get button, then there's a new value for a frequency, and then I can print out a message accordingly, if I can remember what's going on here. /t button, whoops, make it capital B, button, who are you, button? You are button I. Button I is set to the frequency that I got. Well, oh, it's in FREQ. There, Indel. That was a bunch of stuff, wasn't it? Let me look and see what's going on here. I'm going to loop through possibly all the possible buttons. I might have to change this index number later. I just slapped that up there. But this is checking to see if it's possible to get a button value. If none of them are set, then they're all going to return false, and it's not going to print out any buttons, which sort of suggests I need an else here, don't I? Else, see out. There's actually a couple of things that could be wrong. Either button number I is invalid. That's a possibility. I'm not going to have a button number 100, for example. Either button number I is invalid, invalid, therefore it returned false instead of true, or it's just not set yet, or it's not set. See what happened there? I'm going to go through all my different buttons that I might have in my RadioButtons object. Notice there are multiple things. It's one object, but it's got an array inside it. So it's got all those different private variables together inside an array. So button I might be set to a frequency if I set it up here, but it might not. Either button I is invalid or it's not set. So what do we got here? I set a button. I put it in the set button. Well, I'm gonna stick with that for now and switch over. That's not much of a driver program, is it? I'm gonna have to fix this up. It's certainly not as elaborate as the TV class, but I'm not gonna type in all that stuff like there is for the TV class. I'm gonna go ahead. You know, I've got enough going to get this whatever I call it, RadioButtons thing going. Save that. Make a new file and empty file, and I want to put it in the project, and I want it to be RadioButtons.h, the header file, and I do want that to go in the project, and I do have now a header file, and I do need to name it. Whoops, what did I do? I broke it. Oh, view. I want the manager. Give me the manager. I really broke it. Files. Somewhere there's one called, oh, this is management here. I don't want all that stuff. Projects, workspace. Yeah, I just needed to double click. Silly me. Okay, I need to make this larger. Control, scroll with the mouse. There, it's larger. Oh, come on. I wish I could say we're doing this on purpose. I can't fake it. I am not doing this on purpose. Radio buttons .h, for crying out loud. R England. Can't even spell my name. And we are at TransCU. Virtually at least. And this is CS 2124, May 2021. This is the RadioButtons interface. In other words, it's the view of this class to the world. And we've got some standard stuff that we do here. Pound sign, define, and this is explained in the videos, but you put an excluder, these preprocessor directives, all those big words. Watch the video for that. You just get in the habit of doing this. Instead of RadioButtons.h, that's too much. I'm just going to do RadBut, short for RadioButtons. RadBut under lot H. If that's not defined, pound sign IFNDEF, got them in the wrong order. If you're not defined RadBut, then define you. Those don't look the same. Yeah, they're the same. And way down at the bottom, before I forget, I need an NDIF, ENDIF. Everything else, all the other stuff goes in the middle. What this is really saying in a nutshell is, if you have seen this RadioButtons.h file before, then ignore us the second time. Move on, nothing to see here. If you've never been here before, then pay attention, because here's how I'm going to tell you what class, not TV, RadioButtons, what that looks like. And I made that plural because each one of these is going to have multiple buttons in it. And it's got to have some public functions, at least the constructor and destructor, which are almost the same name as a class. RadioButtons. And we don't pass anything into the constructor. And the squiggle, the tilde sign, is the destructor, RadioButtons. Hope I'm spelling those correctly. The compiler will be very happy to tell me if I misspelled either one of those. And I'm going to try to be a good example again. This is constructor destructor. CONSTRUCTOR destructor. I'm putting both these together. There. Now then, what else we got? I forgot. I called functions. I should remember what they are. Set button and get button. Okie doke. I said one of them was a mutator, didn't I? M-U-T-A-T-O-R. We could put these in either order. I think usually, though, the accessors come first because they can't change anything. My mutator is what data type? Set button. I don't have it as any data type, so it looks like it's void. Void. Set, B-U-T-T-O-N, and I should have printed this out. Set button, it wants the button number and the frequency. Okay, int, button short for button number, and double frequency. There. And what else? Accessor. This was supposed to be simpler than the TV class. I don't know that it's ending up that way, is it? This one was bool. Set button. No, get button is bool. Get button, because there might not be a button to get. It might be an unused array element, or it might be an invalid button number. So there are ways this could fail. Get button, the French might say. No, they don't say that. And what parameters? I think they're the same, aren't they? They look like they're identical. The first one's a button number. The second one is a radio station frequency. There is a difference, though. Int button. That's not the difference. Here's the difference. Double ampersand frequency. Because if this function is successful, const, because it's not allowed to change anything. If this, whoops, I jumped the gun. We're not ready to type in the function. If this one is successful, then it will change the value of this variable so that the main program has a new value of frequency to print out when we get back. That's how that get button function is going to communicate or pass back the radio frequency associated with button I. That's how it's going to pass it back to the main program. Okay. Is that it? Is that all we need? I don't know. Silly me. Of course not. Private. We got to have some data to store here. Private. Private. This is going to be an array of type double. Double. What's a good variable name? These are the station numbers. S-T-A-T-I. No, station frequencies. I'll spell it out just this one time. Q-U-E-N-C-I-E-S. How many of these do we need? Well, square bracket for the dimension. We might need different ones at different times, depending on what our application is. I'm going to make this a symbolic constant, B-U-T-T-O-N, and count, since it's how many buttons there are. And voila, just like that, I've got a private array that all of these member functions will be able to see automatically. Notice we're not passing, thank goodness, I couldn't type this right every time. We're not passing station frequencies to any of these functions. Some of them don't get anything at all, and the others just get a couple of numbers, but nobody gets this. This is the private array inside RadioButtons that's going to store all our stations. And before I forget, I better put my symbolic constant up here. That's the button count is type int, because that's a whole number. B-U-T-T-O-N underline C-O-U-N-T equals, and I'm only going to do 4. I might even trim it down to 3. I'm going to see how hard it is to test. Okay, save that. Save. And now I have a header file. The main program is blissfully unaware of it. I better put it in here. Pound include. When it's one of your homemade header files, you put it in quotes, so it looks in the current directory. B-U-T-T-O-N. No, there's no button. Radio. There, look at this. It's helping me. Thank you. RadioButtons. I put that in quotes. If I put it in pointy brackets, it looks in the system library directory. If I put it in quotes, it looks in the current working directory where I am. You know, I'm going to see if I can compile this. Is there just a compile? There's a build. Whoops. In tiny little red fine print, I got lots of errors. Undefined reference to. It's telling me it can't find any of those functions. Well, surprise, surprise. You don't have any of those functions. We don't have an implementation file yet. But if that's all it can find wrong, I'm going to declare victory and retreat. I'm going to cheat. Right click and copy all this. Why? Why would I want to copy that? For this reason, watch this. New file, empty file. Put it in the project. RadioButtons.cpp. RadioButtons.cpp. Yes, yes, yes. Please, all. There it is. And right click and paste. There. What could be simpler? Control, scroll up, make it bigger. This just change the H to CPP, and voila. We have an implementation file. Oh, no, we don't either. Not until I change the comment. Now I'm being flippant. Implementation. We don't need this. We're not going to be here. This is for the linker to tie together. That's defined in the header. I'm mentally going back to the header now. The class declaration is in the header. I don't know what a destructor is. D-E-S-T-R-U-C-T-O-R. Mental note, I need to go back and fix that. Okay. Now then, I've got to turn these into real functions. They can't just be prototypes anymore. So here's a real function for you. Look at that. That is a real function. It doesn't do anything. Neither does this. That's a real function. That doesn't do anything. Ah, but the mutator, that's got to do something. You know what? No, it doesn't. Ha ha. Empty function. Oh, can it be this simple? Well, for now it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is our first example of what we in the biz would call stub functions. What this does, let me show you what this does. What this does, save, it better save. What this does is provide an existing function, a legitimate, bona fide, real life function for each one of the promised functions in the header file, even though these don't do anything. Now, it's going to complain about this one. It's going to say, you promised you would return a value, and yet you didn't. Let me see if my prediction is correct. I'm going to go back to the main program, even though I don't have to. Well, yeah, I do. And get button, which one is it? Get button needs to return a bool right here. I'm using the return value of get button to see if it's true. By the way, since we're professionals now, watch this carefully. If get button is true, is precisely equivalent to if get button all by itself. If you don't have equals equals true, then just like Sven in test 1, It looks to see whether or not this value itself is true or false all by itself, even though we're not comparing it with the logical operator. The return value then becomes the value of this condition. If this returns true, the condition's true. If this returns false, the condition's false. I don't know how many other ways I could say that, but I don't need the double equals true. It's kind of redundant. That's not my point. My point is I'm going to save it. I'm going to try to build it again. Not even going to try to run it. What did it say? Oh, this is syntax error. Can you read that? Expected class. Oh, yeah, you saw that, didn't you? If these are member functions, they got to have radio. And I was looking at that right here in the. No, I wasn't. I was looking at the header file. It has to have radio buttons : on every one of these. Otherwise, it does not know that these are member functions of the radio buttons class. So this is like the mother may I. And you got to put it out in front of everyone. It's just part of the rules of the game, rules of engagement. There. Whoops. Got to spell it right too. There. Now then, save. Now then, build. Radio buttons does not name a type. What's good complaining about now? What does the TV class do that I'm not doing? Well, you know what? It is including its own header file. No wonder it doesn't know what class this is. Include radio buttons. See, that's why I've got the TV class next to me. If I would refer to it, maybe it would help me. And I wouldn't make so many stupid errors. Wouldn't that be nice? Then save. Now let's try to build. Oh, well. Ruh-roh. No return statement in function returning non-void. It's trying to tell me politely that you promised you'd return true or false. Okay, well, you know what? As long as this function's empty, it's not going to get anything, so I'm going to return false. There. Now I've got a complete set of stub functions. All the ones that promise to return something do return something. They don't do any work, but they still return something. Set button, it's not going to return anything, so it doesn't have to have a return statement. And there we go. There we go. Here's all the functions as promised in the header file, and I think the header file might be about done now. This one's got a ways to go. These are all nothing but stubs. They don't do anything. And this, who knows whether this is complete or not. That is too big, isn't it? Control wheel down. There. You'll just have to get closer to your screen. Now, try to build that. What? Let me see. I can't read that fine print. Can somebody read that to me? Yikes. Okay, I think it's ready to roll. Let's see. Roll, baby, roll. Button number. Let's do button number 2. And I'm going to set that to 101.5. And it says, all the button numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're either invalid or not set. What did we learn here? Well, we learned that we can go ahead and compile and link and run even a multi-file project without having done much with our class. These are all, what this does, when you use stub functions, what you've done is create for yourself a little to-do list. These are all the functions that have got to be implemented before Pinocchio is a real boy and you've got a real live radio buttons class that does anything, for crying out loud. So let's think about what they need to do. What does set button need to do? Set button right here. Set button needs to set the button. And I forgot the name of my variable. It is station frequencies. STATION FREQUENCIES. I should have hit tab and just saved it, didn't I? Button equals frequency. What could be simpler? And done and done. And get button, what's that supposed to do? That is supposed to set frequency FREQ equals. Notice we're going the other direction here. We're setting a value of frequency so the main program can see it back in the main program. Where else would the main program see it? Equals station ION. There we go. Station frequency square bracket button. Now let's think about this very, very carefully. It's possible that we don't want it to return false if it actually got it. We want it to return true. But it's possible this could fail. Why could this fail? Well, it could be that button is out of range. And we know how to test that. We know how to test a range. Let's test the negative. If the button number is too low, button what's the lowest index available? If button is less than 0, 0 is our lowest button number because this is a good old-fashioned garden variety array, and our valid index numbers are 0 through button count minus 1. So if button is less than 0, if it's negative, is too low. Or another way, it could be off the other end if it's too high. If button is too high, if it's greater than or actually equal to, I can do it this way, greater than or equal to my symbolic constant, which is button count, because 4 is too high. The only valid index numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3. B-U-T-T-O-N count. Look at that. Okay. If it's out of range, then I get out of Dodge. Return false. Which means all the rest of my function will be an implicit else. An implicit else means you don't actually put an else here because you're a special case of in a function. If this condition is true and we've got an invalid button number, then we're gone. It's not going to accidentally fall through and execute this. It's only going to execute this if the condition is false, and therefore it's an else that's implicit. We don't even have to put else there. Is this all? Is this it? Did we do it? Let's try to run it. Button number 2, station frequency 101.5. Oops. None of them got set. Button 2, what did you do? Set button, let's see. Set button frequency, and then we turn around and try to get all of them. Somebody's not cooperating. Set button equals frequency if button less than 0 or button greater than or equal to button count return false. Otherwise return false. So we return false in any case. Aren't you lucky to have such an intelligent professor? Please don't let word get out. 2 again, for crying out loud. 101.5. Whoa. Well, something else is going on here. 0, 0, and finally and mercifully, button 2 is set to 101.5. Button 3. What are you doing, button 3? Either 4 is invalid or it's not set. We have some things to fix. Here's some things to fix. When it tried to get button 0 and 1, and especially button 3, the button number was not out of range, but there still was no button value set. You know what? We need to initialize the buttons. Anything we need to do to get this engine started and ready to roll, it's got to be done in the constructor. For int I equals 0, I is less than button count plus I. I'm going to loop through all the buttons and set them to something meaningful. Station frequencies, square bracket I equals no button for you. And it's almost like a sentinel. This will be, and I can put this in here because there's no reason for the header file to know anything about this constant. Const int no button. No, wait. These are station frequencies, aren't they? Yeah, that's not an integer. That's a double. Good catch there. Thanks for letting me know. No button equals negative 1.0. I don't think there is any such station frequency. So let's see here. Here's what happened. I initialized all of these to controlled garbage, you could think of it. This is not a valid frequency for a button number in your car to have. But that way I can check and see whether or not it's been set to anything. So, until further notice, all of the buttons are no button. And that's going to mean when I get the button, I need to be even more careful. If the button is out of range, I could do an OR, but that's going to make this condition just way, way, way long. It might even go clear to the side of the screen. I'm not going to do that. If I clear the button number, let's see if we can clear the frequency. If station frequencies, sub buttonum, I like that variable, not equal to no button. So we got something valid here. No, if it is equal, we're returning false. This is if we fail. If it is equal to no button, oops, then go. Yeah, this is going to have to be an OR, I'm afraid. If, yeah, this is not going to be strong enough the way it is. So I'm going to have to make that ridiculously long condition. Just like I said, as it is now, it's like an AND. If the button is valid, we stay here, and if the frequencies stay here. But this has got to be an OR. Sorry. OR. Three-way OR. That's our first three-way OR. We are breaking new ground at every turn. If any of those things, if the button number is too low, or the button number is too high, or if the station for that particular button is not set to anything yet, then we fail in getting the button frequency and we return false. Otherwise, finally, we set the station frequency to button number and return true. I'm saying this out loud, just kind of reviewing the logic myself. Will this work? Who knows? Compile and link and run. To 101.5. You know what? I think that looks good. Either it's not valid or it's not set for everybody except for button 2, and button 2 is 101.5. It needs a little cosmetic touch-up, doesn't it? I've got a tab before that one, but not before this one, /T. And just so I get a few more successes, I'm going to go ahead and compile and link and run. Let's do button number 3, 88.1. And look at that. Button 3 is set and none of the others are. You know what? We're testing more buttons than are available, and we could run into a problem. Let me test my hypothesis here. We only have 4 buttons, even though we're trying to print out 6. How about button number 5? Let's set it to 123.4. Button number 5. It didn't give me back button number 5. It didn't store that frequency. Why? I suspect because there is no button number 5. So there's a way, ladies and gentlemen, there's a way the set button could fail. You know what? I think it could fail for the same reasons as this. So this got a lot of tests here. I'm going to do these a little differently. I'm going to test for several things rather than making one ridiculously long condition. If button on less than 0, then you're invalid. Or if button num is too big, greater than or equal to button number, no, button count, then I'm going to return false. And they're going to have to expect a return value. So that's got to be bool. Now, if I'm still here, there's still the possibility that what? Well, it doesn't matter that it's not set because we're going to set it. So we don't need this piece at all. What we need is to make sure we got a valid frequency. So rather than making this condition longer, I'm just going to test separately. If frequency, FREQ, is invalid, If it's equal to no button, certainly that's invalid. But actually anything, the reason I use that is because anything negative is invalid. So if frequency is less than 0.0, I also need to return false. You can't set this button to a negative frequency. What are you thinking? Otherwise, I cleared both of those. And when I'm done setting it, I return true. Let me review the logic here. If the button number is too small for set button, or if it's too large, either one of those, the set button is not going to be successful. You can't set a button that doesn't exist, so you return false. If the frequency, idiot user passed me, is less than 0, I can't use that frequency, so I return false. So I've got a sequence here of ways I could fail. If I clear both of those, I'm still here. I've got the implicit else. I'm going to set the frequency to that button number and be done with it and return true. Success. You were successful. Okay, save everything, run. I've changed so many things, I don't know if I'm up. Yeah, including that. That's a Boolean function now. You are no longer void, you are bool. And you know what? Main program needs to be adjusted as well. If, we need an if here. If this is successful. I'm not going to print out all that stuff. I'm just going to print out a little bit. See out. Yay! Your button was set. Aren't we happy? Endo. And otherwise, see out. If we got a yay, we've got to have a boo. Boo! Button not set. Now it's going to take a lot of time to run this over and over again. So let me see here. I'm going to do 3 different buttons. So I'm going to just set up a quick for loop here. Watch this. FOR int I equals 0. As fast as I can type. Too fast. I is less than 3 plus I. All I want to do is do all of this stuff 3 times. Click your heels together 3 times. I don't need that closing curly bracket, not yet, but I do need all of this to be indented to show that it's inside the for loop. I was going to do this real fast, and it's too late to be real fast, isn't it? There. Now it's going to try to set 3 of my radio buttons, and that's the closing for the else. I need a closing for the for. Yikes! That is a lot of stuff to change without trying to test it. Let's review this. I'm going to ask for a button number and a station frequency. I'm going to try to set it, bless my heart, and if it's set successfully, this function will return true, which remember this is equivalent to equals true on the return value. Then it's going to say, yeah, your button was set, or yay. Otherwise, it's going to say, boo, the button's not set for whatever reason. So let me save everything. Let me run everything. Nope. Expected, you know what? That's very subtle a way of telling me you got to have parentheses around that whole big old condition, which I do not have. There. Now save. Now try to run. Oh. All these errors. That's not supposed to be a colon. See, that's what happens when I use this small font. There. Old person font. Now I can see it. Run. See, all it took was old person font. I'm going to need a bigger window. I'm going to need a bigger boat. Button number 2, my favorite button. Let's set you to -7. Ah ha ha. Boo, button not set. Button number 8. Station frequency, we'll make it valid this time. 12.34. A boo button not set. 3. 101.3. Okay. Yay, your button was set. Press any key, continue. This is going to need a lot more testing. I'm not going to run it through every possible, but let's do 3 successes and see what happens. 3, that's not 3, 3, 88.1. Yay, it's set. That was so much fun. Let me say it again. 3, 88.9. Yay, it's set again. 2, Who have I not tried? I haven't tried 4. I think that pushes the limit, doesn't it? No, that's beyond the limit. Darn it. 103.4. Not set. That was too high because there's not a button number 4. It only goes up to 3. But it did set button number 3. Indicate to continue. Now, I'm going to try to behave myself and have 1. Good. Run here. Button number 0. There is a button number 0. And 0. Maybe there is a station number 0. It did set it. As long as it's not negative and the button number is valid, then we're in business. 3. That's the maximum button number. 123.4. That was set. 1 more. I'm on a roll. Button number 1. 88.9. Look at this. Button 0 set to 0. Button 1 is set to 88.9. Button 3 is 123.4. And talking about declaring victory and retreating, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have us a real live Radio Buttons class. What else do I need to do to this? Non-empty constructor. We don't need a destructor. There's nothing to take apart, nothing to tear down. And ridiculous conditions to see whether or not they're valid. You'll just have to go back and watch the video again to get all the details of that. And this we haven't touched in a long time. This led to creation of stub functions, and now I'm going beyond what we need. Close up shop, close up video, and I'll see you online.